Work stops being hard. Teams thrive. Allie Jones shows how when everyone works in their zone.
Welcome to Rise to Lead, the podcast where heart-driven leaders come together to inspire and innovate. They will share actionable tips and insights that help you lead your team more successfully, advance your career or business as a leader, achieve greater impact, and experience deeper fulfillment. I'm your host, Regina Huber, guiding you through deep conversations about leadership that's rooted in service, freedom, and the desire to leave a positive mark on the world.
Welcome to Rise to Lead, where we are joined today by yet another amazing guest, Allie Jones. Allie, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Total pleasure. Allie Jones is a leadership coach, facilitator, and strategic consultant with over 7 years as a business owner. She founded Allie Jones Consulting to help mission-driven leaders and organizations grow intentionally through coaching, group facilitation, and professional development, where she also uses the Enneagram and Working Genius method. She built Illuminated Marketing, a boutique agency serving nonprofits and small businesses. Allie, your story first. What experiences or pivotal moments led you to become a leadership coach, and what brought you to working with frameworks like Working Genius?
Thanks. That's a great question. So, I started my career as a third grade teacher. And as much as I love teaching and love third graders, I found myself a few years in feeling really burnt out. And that's not a fun feeling when you're only in your 20s. And so, I ended up quitting teaching and trying to figure out how to build a career that actually fit who I am and how I'm wired better. I started freelance writing and just naturally started gravitating towards things that make work not feel like work. And so marketing and writing turned into more consulting and strategic development with businesses. And I came across this framework called Working Genius, and it put language to what I had a gut sense for of that there's certain things about work for different people that bring us more joy and fulfillment. And I think having been burnt out so early in my career, I'm really passionate about helping other people and organizations thrive at work and life in ways that feel really life-giving and productive. And that's exactly what this tool offers and why I really love it so much.
Okay, great. So we definitely look into it more. I'm curious, and other people are probably too. Some of our listeners might be familiar with it, others not. So, first of all, let's talk about how the let's talk about joy at work, right? It's also a topic that I really love to talk about. So, how can the Working Genius framework help leaders identify where they find joy and where they can find joy and fulfillment in their work more easily?
Yeah. So, if we think about what we did when we were little, we often can find clues to what brings joy in our work and our day to day. For me, I loved I actually did love playing teacher. When I was little, I loved having my little sister help me or like help her and practice her letters or diving into the world of creativity. And I also, as I grew older, really found that I loved one-on-one conversations, which is why I love being a guest on podcasts because we get to have meaningful conversations about what sparks joy for other people. And so um, these things are things I naturally gravitate towards from I did from my childhood or what I do with my free time. And work can bring those same sparks of joy as well. We probably naturally gravitate towards certain things in our working process where all of a sudden work doesn't feel like work. And that concept of flow that I may say his name wrong, but Mihai Csikszentmihalyi wrote about this concept of how when we're in this state of flow, we lose sense of time, work feels deeply purposeful and meaningful, but it kind of is sitting at that intersection of what we love and what we're passionate about, but also what we're good at. And so finding that is not just a nice to have, it's actually a need to have. And when leaders can find those places of joy for themselves, but also the teams they're leading, work actually becomes more effective. We get better results from every stage of the working process.
Yeah, right. When we feel like we're in this Zen state and
Yeah.
this flow state, of course, we're more creative, and it's easier to move into that state if we are in an environment that supports it.
Mhm.
And that includes leadership, of course,
Yeah.
because leadership does have a ripple effect, whether it's the type of leadership we want to see or not, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, I think joy is so important in the workplace. Now, I had this saying in the past because there's this not so great saying, no pain, no gain, right?
Mm,
Reminds me
mhm.
of that right now. I always like to say no joy, no gain, or no fun, no gain.
Yeah.
Because that's actually much more true. It's much more true, you know? And yeah, why not do something fun and call it work, right?
Yeah, and that's not to say that there isn't going to be challenges in work or that
Absolutely.
all work can be completely fun-filled and easygoing and lighthearted. Every job has its challenging parts, and all work requires all different segments of what we'll talk about in a second when we get into the 6 different types of working genius. We have to do all of those parts. But when we can maximize our own areas of fun and find ways to bring that fulfillment, it actually does make us more effective and it makes us, um, yeah, more productive, more effective, and be able to contribute the things that we are wired to show up and contribute.
Yeah, it also reminds me of the difference between excitement and enthusiasm.
Mm,
Enthusiasm helps us keep going, even through the challenges and through the types of activities that we might not enjoy so deeply. However, excitement is often much more temporary. We can be excited. It's great to be excited, and oftentimes it's just a thing of the moment, and then all of a sudden it's gone. So we can, for example, fall from the excitement high into a deep hole very easily, right? Whereas when we have true enthusiasm, then that keeps us going because we're enthusiastic not just about that specific situation right now in this very moment, but about the entire project, the entire plan we have or vision we have, right? So let's talk about in the context of the framework, right, of Working Genius. Let's talk about team alignment first. We already touched on team a little bit, so I want to pick that up. Can you share an example of how aligning team members with their geniuses through this
mhm.
framework increased engagement or impact, and
Yes.
what exactly what it was achieved?
Yeah. So this framework, which was developed by Patrick Lencioni, he's written other books such as Five Dysfunctions of a Team and The Ideal Team Player. So his work really is in the thought leadership arena of how we show up at work, especially in teams. And so this latest work of his, of the 6 types of working genius, is basically the concept that we all do have these areas where we tend to show up and be able to bring that gift, that genius into the work as it's required. And the 6 different types kind of follow the process of how any sort of work gets accomplished. It starts with ideation and coming up with the concept, then activation of getting the team together and discerning the right way to go, and then actually getting the work done and implementation. So
Yeah,
you
I'm
could
clearly in the ideation piece.
I know we did. And yes, Regina, you were able to take this test ahead of time. And so, yes, you are in that ideation stage. Your two geniuses are in wonder and invention. So you love to probably come up with the idea and consider the bigger picture and are more what we naturally think of when we think of geniuses. So you love that stage. Tell the audience more, like, what about when you took the assessment, like what struck you? Did that resonate with your experience in your career?
It did. I mean, I'm familiar with human design, for example, and I'm a manifester in the human design, which is there's also another word for it in the newer form of human design, quantum human design, which is called the initiator. So that probably describes it better,
Mhm.
actually.
Yes.
And yeah, so I was, yeah, thanks for having me do this, by the way. Thanks for offering this to me. So I was a little bit surprised by a few things. Maybe it says I have this little mosquito flying around here. Sorry. So
Oh
if you're watching, dear audience, then you see me probably following it
no.
with my eyes. Uh, okay, so so it says my areas of working genius are invention and wonder, right? That's not too surprising. They're working competency, discernment and enablement, and working frustration, galvanizing and tenacity. Oh, that is not surprising. By the way, I was just thinking there were a few little details, and I can't remember all the details right now because it goes into a lot of detail actually. But yeah, the galvanizing is about rallying and motivating people, it says here, right?
Mhm,
And yes, so I do know that I can inspire people,
mhm,
but maybe it's at that higher level,
mhm.
where I really feel most comfortable.
Yeah, so if I can kind of add to the framework a little bit with what you're
Mhm.
sharing.
Yeah.
So that wonder and invention is really where work feels like it fills your cup. You really enjoy it. But when you
Mhm.
took the assessment, you found that um, galvanizing and tenacity were in your areas of frustration. So, galvanizing is a genius that is required in that activation stage of like getting people moving, um, maybe pushing people out of their comfort zone, inspiring them to get started, and rallying people. And so, that does not mean because it's listed as your frustration, that doesn't mean that you're bad at it. You're probably
Mhm.
really good at it when you need to. What I find and what you kind of were hinting at is maybe there's nuance there. Galvanizing people on a higher level in your inspiration through your books, through your podcasts, and your work is more helping people get going, or that initiator in maybe the human design language. So you're sort of getting people motivated, but it's through the lens of that higher altitude of thinking about the possibilities and helping them consider a different framework. So you're using your galvanizing as it's needed, but through the lens of your geniuses. I also have galvanizing as a frustration, and for me, it's demotivating, it's draining. I don't enjoy trying to get people to get stuff done, especially when they're not already motivated. I don't like calling people to try to get them to volunteer for a nonprofit benefit dinner. Or when I hire people, I want to make sure I have someone who has that intrinsic motivation and commitment to excellence. Because if I need to like be on them to get stuff done or to project manage them, that ends up being really draining to me. So that's where my
Right.
area, but other
And I was
people,
gonna ask you about yours, so you already answered.
yes, yeah. Um,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
yeah, so then the other ones that were your areas of competency. So that was discernment and enablement. And so those are actually my areas of genius. And so discernment is like being able to take those ideas that you are really good at coming up with in that ideation stage, asking the big questions, coming up with and generating solutions. Discernment then is what's the best way to move forward of all these ideas, what's our strategy, what's going to be the priority we should pick. And I love conversations like that. It's what led me from being a freelance writer and writing blog posts to telling businesses, hey, we need a marketing strategy here because otherwise we're just throwing spaghetti at the wall. And how does this actually tie to your bigger picture as an organization? I was naturally having those conversations because it's what I love talking about. And so that's where marketing led into business coaching and leadership development. And then enablement is the genius of really loving to come alongside people and help make things happen. So it's in that um, implementation phase of work of actually saying, okay, here's the vision, let's make it happen. How can I help? And so that is an area of genius for me. So I love that. That fills my cup to be able to listen to a business owner, hear what it is they're trying to do, and then help make that happen. It's your area of competency, Regina. So that means you're probably really good at it and you've honed those skills. But if all you were doing all day long was having to just implement what other people's vision without you being able to help come up with the ideas and the solutions, you could do it for a while, but over time it might be kind of soul sucking or draining. So that area of competency is I'm good at it. I can pull from those skills as I need to, but it's more neutral rather than really joy filled or frustrating. It's kind of in that
Well, it
middle.
comes into the area of teaching, though, as well, and training, right? Which I've done quite a lot of, and you have, so
Yes.
definitely. So we have that in common, and I really enjoy that too, like the training aspect,
Yeah.
right? But as you said, I enjoy it way more when it's my own materials. Way more. I have done training work for agencies, and it's not half as enjoyable because first of all, I don't always agree with all the content, and then it
Mm,
already sounds, it doesn't sound like it, but it feels to me a little bit already a little bit forced, right?
mhm,
Because it
mhm.
doesn't feel 100% authentic. Although I can respect the materials that have been created by other people, when it's my own materials, first of all, I know what I'm talking about, right, from the
Yes.
start. So I don't have to make
Right.
the effort, oh, I now need to figure out what was going on in that person's head, or what do they mean with this example. I cannot really follow this example myself, but I have to teach it, right? It doesn't make so much sense. So that's where I easily also get a little bit not even frustrated, but bored because it's not the exciting part of my work. And
Mhm.
also then having to figure out, okay, how can I make this example meaningful to my audience when I don't even find it meaningful, you know? And
Yeah.
I have a certain liberty to adapt and to adjust in that particular case that I'm thinking of, but it's so much more fulfilling and enjoyable to me when it's what I have come up with. And I know that we don't always come up with every single original ideas. None of us reinvent the wheel, but we do it in our own way. We pull it together in our own way. We have our own ideas, and that's what I like. So yeah, definitely true. So thanks for that. And I can of course see the teaching, you're the teacher. I mean, even in your current role, I can see how you are probably brilliant at just having people see, this is what you need, this is how you do it, even though
Mhm.
you're also the one who develops the strategy, right?
That's right. Yeah. It sounds like for both of us, we love that teacher role, which is sort of that enablement role, but we power it or feel more fulfilled by it when we're pulling in the discernment, the wonder, the invention, and like actually getting to develop the curriculum, to develop the concepts that we think are the most important. Then the enablement becomes more fulfilling. But if it was just handed off to us, like, here, teach this
Mhm.
XYZ, it's that boring, and it's like, "I can do this, but is this really my highest contribution? Maybe not.
Right. Right, right. Yeah, and maybe that's a piece of your burnout, because
Mhm.
burnout isn't just about the workload, it's about many factors, as we know.
Yeah.
So, have you ever been in a role, a project, or a team, or worked with a team where geniuses were greatly underutilized? Maybe your own, right? But
Yeah.
or maybe you have a different example, and how did that
Sure.
experience shape the
Yeah.
way
So you
you
had
guide
start you
leaders and teams now?
Yes. And you had kind of started getting into this of like, how does this play out in a team context?
Mhm.
So it's really powerful to take this within your team that you're working with and see where does this map out? Because it can often be the case that a lot of people have similar uh, geniuses. And then it kind of creates like this magnet. So people are more gravitating towards those areas of work and then either shortcutting or skipping or just not doing the other aspects of work that are required. For example, if there's a team that has a lot of your areas of genius, like if several team members, this showed up in a group that I did some consulting for. They had a lot of wonder and they had a lot of invention. And then only one team member was really more in that implementation phase with the genius of tenacity. And so what happened was, as people were trying to move things forward and get projects accomplished, that leader and some of the other higher up people that had that wonder and invention kept coming up with new ideas like, "Oh, what if we did this? Or I think it'd be awesome if at the event we're having next week, we brought in this speaker." And to that person who had the lone genius of tenacity, they were so frustrated in their position because they were trying to get stuff accomplished, to cross things off the to-do list, to not only get it done, but done well. And for those with the wonder and invention, they weren't thinking about the realities of actually getting stuff done. And so it caused a lot of burnout for that person with tenacity because they kind of were shouldering the burden of actually accomplishing all of those great ideas, but there was no one really there to sit with the genius of discernment to say these are great ideas, but what does the work require right now? That idea might be a great thing to put in the parking lot for next year's event, but for now we need to move forward with the plan we already created. And
Right.
just to give
Mhm.
one other example of a different team I've
Mhm.
helped, in a similar kind of scenario, that there was a newer hire who also had a lot of genius in wonder and invention at that ideation stage, but they were put into a role of kind of just getting stuff done. You're a junior position, you need to implement these ideas, you need to get these things accomplished. But they actually weren't ever able to really contribute because they weren't invited to the meetings where they were asking the big questions or coming up with the strategies after they took the working genius and realizing, hey, this person's actually got some gifts to contribute at a different stage and a different, even though it's not on their job description, let's invite them to these meetings and just let them utilize that. They're going to be so fulfilled and enjoy, have more satisfaction out of their job. But we're going to be able to get better ideas because that's their strength. That's their area of genius.
Right. That's why we really need to think about our job descriptions in a different way. I totally agree with that.
Mm.
A job description for one person in one job, which is similar to, well, if you have two people in the same job, let's say, and they have the same job description, it doesn't mean that that's ideal, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes it's useful to have that as a foundation, as a basis, but then they need to be adapted to each individual's genius zone, so to speak,
Yes.
or
Yeah.
to really who they are and how they also to the speed in which they grow,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I yeah, so what would I see that if I want to hire somebody, and I can use this test during the hiring process. And that's, of course, great because then I can complement my team with what's most needed in terms of the
Yeah.
type.
And that's
However, if I
actually,
already have a team,
yeah,
now how do I use this to adjust?
that's right. Yeah. I'm actually in that process right now of hiring another employee. And what I did was I actually wrote the job description to try to attract the genius I was wanting because no one on my current team has a genius of galvanizing. So I do need that project manager that, hey, let's get this going and we need you and let's pull your strengths in and so I wrote it so that someone without that genius would be like, "Oh, this is not the job for me." You in a hiring process, maybe a second or third interview in, if you did want to give that assessment just to see, it still can be a powerful tool for them. But yeah, I totally think through the lens of working genius when hiring. But it can
Okay.
also, as you said, in a team dynamic, also help shuffle people around or give them more tailored job descriptions that really fit their areas of genius.
Right. And sometimes also just the awareness, right?
Yeah.
Because if you know that you're not great at executing and taking things to the end, then, finishing projects or activities, then that's already great because then you can also play with that and say, hey, you know what? Oh, that's really something that I've observed. I can admit that this is the case, and I know what now I know why, and not use it as a justification so much as you could use it as something to build on, right? If it's required in the team, and maybe the team is not for you forever. However, while you're in that team, you also want to give your best so that the team can succeed. And sometimes
Mhm.
that requires a little bit of adaptation in that sense as
Mhm.
well. Now,
Yeah.
I know this about myself, right, Allie? I'm great at starting things, but not so great at finishing.
Same. Yeah, but I think that what's so helpful is I feel like as leaders, we can put this expectation on ourselves to be excellent at everything. And one thing that's a gift in this working genius framework is it brings compassion to ourselves. Like no one's a genius in all six things, right?
Mhm.
And that's okay to say, that's, yeah, tenacity is my frustration. And that doesn't mean that sometimes I don't still have to, you know, get all those little nitty gritty details done, but I can also help alleviate that expectation to be great at everything because well rounded teams will outperform well rounded individuals every time. When we can bring a team together, hire that virtual assistant who does have that tenacity to get those things done and take that burden off of you so you can be really spending more of your time in your areas of genius.
Yeah, right. Because a lot of people feel that pressure to excel in all areas, and we can't because we are all different for a reason. We are different personalities, different, we have different strengths, different talents.
Mhm.
We have also developed them differently based on what we have experienced in our life so far, our stories, right?
Mhm.
So, yeah, absolutely. And this is also a way of someone honoring their geniuses,
Mhm.
the genius zones,
Yeah.
while still contributing in areas that aren't maybe natural to them, right? And
Mhm.
then also honoring that you don't have to be great at everything. That's not what's expected.
Yeah, letting go of the guilt of
Hmm.
not enjoying certain aspects of work, and then
Hmm.
setting up support and people around you to adjust for that is, I think, really
Yeah.
freeing in a lot of ways.
Right. And again, this doesn't mean because sometimes this is misunderstood as a saying, oh, you don't need to work on certain skills that everybody should have, like communication skills, for example, or interpersonal
Right.
skills, right? These are skills that I think everybody needs a certain level of, right?
Mhm. That's right.
There are areas that we want to always keep improving for sure, but also we can amplify our strengths if we focus on them. So really finding that harmony, it's not even a balance, it's harmony between the two without judging ourselves all the time because we're not perfect everywhere.
Yeah,
Right?
that's well said.
Yeah.
I agree. Mhm.
So, uh, I have one last question that I would really love your input for,
Okay.
Allie, and it is, how do you hope the Working Genius framework changes the way leaders and teams approach work in the coming years?
Mm, yeah. I think
What's your vision for that?
Yeah, I think if people, as this catches on and people start with a ripple effect, and this is kind of how I set up my business at Allie Jones Consulting of
Mhm.
concentric circles of leading yourself well, leading others well, and then leading the work well. So I think the working genius really helps start with self awareness and realizing where your own areas of genius, competency, and frustration are, and having that immediate light bulb moment of, oh, yes, I am this way, and I do struggle with those things. And I can tend to gravitate towards my areas, but then forget these other really important aspects of work. And so, like you said, it's recognizing and amplifying our strengths, but then also being aware of our blind spots in our areas, our gaps. And so then that then leads to how can I empower my team to have that same level of awareness and contribution to the work they're doing? How can I give them 5% more of their workday in their areas of genius? How can I give them responsibility in areas where they're going to be able to step into their that flow and be able to contribute in ways that are going to bring them a lot of fulfillment and effective work? And then when a team is aligned in that way and that shared language, it alleviates a lot of judgment or "Ugh, why is this person not contributing during this brainstorming meeting? Oh, maybe they don't have the genius of invention. Their genius is more in the enablement and tenacity where they want to just get stuff done and we need that. So it helps bring awareness and better teamwork and true collaboration. And then that third ripple of that third concentric circle of getting the work done. This framework, Patrick Lencioni says it's 20% personality test, but 80% productivity tool. And so being able to use this of what does the work require right now? We really need to pull in our genius of discernment. Hey, what the work requires right now is just tenacity. We're here to get this done because we've already done the other stages. And so it allows to sort of orient a team around what the work requires so that it's done more effectively and with more joy as a byproduct from each team member.
Yeah, so it's not just a tool to, um, well, it's not really the right word to profile, but to provide input on everybody's strengths and
Mhm.
blind spots, but also to respond to the needs of a specific moment, if I
Yes,
understand you well. Okay.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Okay, great. Now, I do have one other tiny question that came up because we were talking about blind spots. What are the most common blind spots that you have seen in leaders that haven't done the test yet?
Hmm. I would say two things come to mind. One is that a lot of leaders, not all, but many of them can be in that first half of the working genius, like you, the wonder, invention, and discernment. And
Mhm.
so they're idea people, they're visionary, they break the mold and come up with innovative things. That's why they started their business or got to the leadership position they're in. But they can have a blind spot in the necessity of that enablement and tenacity, the implementation stage. And so they may not have realistic expectations, not because they're trying to be cruel or a
Mhm.
bad boss, but they're just not aware of that their ideas impact people down the road, or that their idea at the last minute is causing challenges, or the necessity to really bring time and effort and attention to that implementation stage because they're off to their next idea. And kind of similar to that in the same way, whatever your genius is will have a double impact on your team because the way you lead will emphasize and gravitate towards those stages that you naturally like. So without the awareness of working genius, you can have a blind spot to undervaluing your areas of frustration just naturally, even if other team members do have that genius.
Right, right. Yeah, one other thing that I do remember also in mind that is was so spot on. I mean, I talk about freedom all the time. And it said, that I really crave the freedom. I actually pulled it up real quick because I just remembered this right now, the freedom point, right? So
That's right.
freedom, they want the freedom to create and invent without constraints or restrictions. I mean, I couldn't have said it better. So it's definitely
Yes. Yeah, that's your
something.
top genius of invention, craves freedom, but then you're crushed by being dismissed, people not taking the time, wanting to take the time to consider the questions you're asking, or constraint. Like you
Mhm.
were saying with the teaching of having to teach to this specific example rather than it being your idea, being forced to stay inside the box can feel really frustrating to you.
Yeah, I always say throw the entire box out. I don't want it. Not just step outside of it, just throw it out.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
And where can people connect with you?
Yes. So I would love if you checked out my website, Allie Jones Consulting / Working Genius. You'll see a little bit more around the specific framework. And as you kind of heard, Regina was breaking down her own test results that she got. It has so many insights. It's a really great tool, but it can also be helpful to talk through that with a certified working genius facilitator, either for yourself as an individual or within a team context, can bring immediate insights and clarity. So, as I like to say, it takes a minute to digest, but a lifetime to master these geniuses because there's so much nuance and insights that can come from this framework. So I'd love if you head to alliejonesconsulting.com / working genius.
Great, thank you so much. Now that I have disclosed all my blind spots, find out yours, guys.
Yes.
So, uh, thank you so much again for coming on to chat with me and inspire with me, Ali, and to everyone else. Thanks for listening. Definitely check it out, share the episode, and tune in again next time.
If something in your leadership feels off, or you're ready to lead with more ease and authenticity, let's talk. In a free 60-minute Lead and Thrive session, we'll cut through the noise, get honest about what's really going on, and map out your next bold move. No cookie cutter, no surface level, just real clarity and the freedom to lead as you. Spots are limited. Go to transformyourperformance.com / lead thrive session to grab yours. Lead like you mean it.